Record, so we're ready to go. Good afternoon, everybody. Happy International Literacy Day. Fergus Dolan here from NALA, the National Adult Literacy Agency. Thanks for joining us. Delighted to have you on International Literacy Day on our second webinar today. And today, this webinar is Literacy Changes Lives. So we've got three facilitators. Catherine Devlin is an adult literacy student from County Donegal. Pauline Hensey is an adult literacy practitioner based in Dublin. And my colleague Helen Ryan is policy officer with NALA. So we're going to start with Catherine. So Catherine, we can't get her camera working, but we can hear Catherine loud and clear. So over to you, Catherine.
Good afternoon to all. Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
We can hear you, Catherine.
Can you hear me all?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Hold on. I have found life during the COVID, well, because I would actually struggle with my digital skills. So I found things like Zoom and the webinar difficult to set up and to also get organized. And obviously, since the ETB had been closed, you missed the support of your tutors and your classmates in order to sort of help you along that area. I would have struggled with that since the COVID. I would have struggled slightly also with sending emails and attachments to my tutor to get my course finished. I would have struggled with that, and I also found the working alone from home. I found that exceptionally lonely, and I found it very lonely actually, where if you were in class, you could turn to your classmates or your tutor, and it just made life harder. And yes, so hopefully we will be up and running again in the ETB on, I think it's the 16th of September. We actually go back. And regarding all the COVID messages, I found that the messages were exceptionally clear, and I found them in plain English with all the health information. I found it very, very helpful, very, very easy to read, very easy to understand. I didn't struggle in that area whatsoever at all. Actually, I found that actually very, very helpful because it was plain, and I just used a lot of just basic common sense, really. And the fake news, I just try to ignore it. And yeah, so the sort of COVID now, we're actually all looking forward to going back. It is going to be difficult, but yeah, we'll sort of see how things go. Fergus and Helen and Pauline, and we just take it from sort of there, really. Any questions?
Okay, thanks a million, Catherine. That was really honest and great. Good that you found the COVID messages clear and in plain English. But yeah, the lockdown is tough. It is isolating, and be it classes or other aspects of life, it can be tough not being able to get out much. I'm just going to have a quick look, Catherine, at the questions box, and there's a lot of positive comments for you, Catherine. Breach Doherty saying, well done, Catherine. Claire Gallard asking, Catherine, were there any positives for you as in during the COVID?
Well, positives that I learned to use Zoom and webinar, it has to be a huge positive, Fergus. It has to be. It has to be, because we are going to be using this regularly. So that was a positive, yes. I struggled dreadfully at the start, but yeah, on a positive note, I learned that.
Great, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. If you have other questions for Catherine, just type them in, and as the webinar goes on, when Pauline finishes speaking or Helen, we can go back with further questions to Catherine. At the minute, Catherine, there's a lot of positive comments for you saying well done, great, but no more questions at the minute. So at this stage, I'm gonna hand over to Pauline Hensey. Pauline is an experienced literacy practitioner based in Dublin. So over to you, Pauline.
Thanks, Fergus. I'm delighted to be here today on International Literacy Day with Catherine and Helen. Yeah, so I'm following up after Catherine's really thoughtful and powerful piece. And really what I'm going to say, a lot of it reflects some of the issues she brought up around literacy, numeracy and digital skills during the COVID crisis. So when Ellen asked me to think about this question, the first thing that came to mind for me was, well, what did it reveal? What did this time of COVID reveal about adult education and adult literacy in particular? And the first kind of word that came to mind for me was fairness. It's probably not too far stretched to say that during COVID, education inequality deepened across all learning communities. We've heard a lot of this in relation to school-going children, where those already further behind were further disadvantaged by a move to online learning. And as learning moved online in adult literacy, it's likely that such vulnerabilities were also revealed, that those with most unmet literacy needs and those needing most assistance were probably finding it hard to access the teaching and other supports that had moved online and to engage in an ever increasing digital world. And I mean, Catherine spoke about that. She spoke about the difficulty of kind of just the digital skills to access the classes, or the reading and numeracy skills that involved. But other issues are things like affordability. I mean, okay, a lot of people would say most of us have smartphones, but a lot of people don't have connectivity, the kind of link to the internet that's needed to access the kind of classes that, you know, were online or the information that was online. Many learners, for example, would have relied on internet services in libraries or community centres. And of course, these were restricted and closed. Like in rural settings, for example, I mean, students I'm working with, the reception is at best patchy. So they again are kind of restricted from engaging in this online world and getting the supports needed. So it's kind of shone a light in another way, kind of during COVID, on the importance of community-based learning spaces. The adult education centres, the family resource centres, the library, the citizen advice centres, that all play a really important part in ensuring that learning and literacy in particular is accessible for all. And the closure or restriction of such spaces really seemed to create learning losses during this time. I mean, Catherine said it so well. There simply wasn't someone there to ask for help face to face. And I've heard learners talk about that on my own kind of distance learning work with NALA. And then, of course, again, Catherine, in relation to this, there's the loss of supports from other learners in the group, loss of a sense of belonging, you know, to a learning community. And this is increasingly in kind of, you know, in research, not seen as just a fuzzy or warm concept. Research has shown that a sense of belonging is one of the 4 pillars of support identified for learning success, including learning success online. And I found myself that this aspect of kind of helping students to engage with each other is difficult to replicate on an online platform. You know, again, reading research around us, they say that when teaching moves online, we're inclined to fall back, reliance falls back to the tutor. So the other thing for COVID, when I thought about the question, it kind of revealed the level of skills learners need to participate in an online learning platform. They need a new language, a language around technology. I would also agree with what Catherine was saying. The health messages initially seemed really clear. Any learners I was working with at a distance, they seemed to recognise the core language around COVID and the behaviours they would need to protect themselves and their families and their communities. What was really more challenging was supporting learners around the language of technology. Just think of the kind of language we need to kind of get onto Zoom, for example. Download an app, click this, scroll down, delete this. Have you got a search bar? I mean, there's so much new kind of words that we have to use if we've to engage digitally with the world. And apart from the language, COVID and the move to online learning revealed the need for a set of critical questions. Is it safe here? You know, is it safe to put in my email here? What do I need to ignore? Should I rely on this piece of text? And I was working with a learner who we were working on buying online, and she had a particular website open. And before she could even browse the website, before she could even look at the clothes online, they were asking her to give her details, her email, etc. And she just said no. I mean, she was adamant that why should she have to give information when she hasn't even decided to buy anything on this particular site. I think the pace of the internet, the way pop-ups come up while you're online, is really difficult to negotiate if you have unmet literacy skills. I've had learners talk about, you know, by the time they would get to put in their numbers on, for example, if they were buying online, they would be locked out of the site because they just didn't do it quick enough. So it revealed really how these unmet needs, literacy, numeracy and digital skills, creates barriers, and Catherine has spoken about those, barriers to supports, barriers to rights, for example, you know, COVID payments and negotiation, filling out that form, barriers to well-being, you know, increased isolation if you can't easily access Zoom, barriers to employment. I mean, the kind of now, okay, at the time during COVID, there weren't many new jobs, but as we're gradually opening up, most of them now are asking you to fill out online applications, and barriers to just general information and knowledge. So it revealed really the vulnerabilities for learners with unmet literacy, numeracy and digital skills. And it highlighted really how crucial these skills are. It also highlighted, I think, the importance of the service Adult Literacy and Community Centres offers. So I think going forward, kind of, that's a terrible phrase, but I've used it anyway, we need to protect these spaces, our adult literacy centres, our libraries, our citizen advice centres, as spaces where learning flourishes, where skills are gained, where access to them means that we have a fairer society, where learners can collaborate, while at the same time recognising that online learning looks like it will be part of what is offered to learners for a while. So we need to think about how can we ensure that all learners can engage in online supports. And we need to think about what kind of training or supports do tutors need to empower learners in these digital spaces. I think that COVID revealed to me how powerful literacy can be in protecting our well-being, but equally how disempowering when you don't have access to the tools or the set of skills needed to negotiate what did become over this time an increasing digital and, you know, as Catherine pointed out, isolated world. Thanks for this.
Okay. Thanks very much, Pauline. That was great. That was really thought-provoking, and I agree totally. Very true what you said about how with COVID literacy, having unmet literacy needs can be even more isolating for some people. and we need to look at how learners can get access to learning opportunities, even if the COVID situation continues. And we also need to work on doing further training with tutors so that they're comfortable delivering literacy from home or Zoom or wherever they need to deliver from. Helen, is it okay if I read out one or two comments about Pauline's talk before you start? Okay, so so if Pauline or Catherine or Helen want to comment on any of these further, feel free to. So Angela Darcy, thanks Angela, says, I agree, Pauline. There were some who had little or no access to computers or the internet, and some who had to juggle home life with work. The ability to create a level playing field where the pitch is different for each player makes equality. Well, that's gone for me. Makes equality difficult. Thanks, Angela. That's true. Sheena Groom, connectivity and broadband issues huge for me in Monasterevin. Sharing the technology with children whom they were also trying to mind was a problem with some adult learners. The children's schooling needs came first. Yeah, I think Sheena. Ross Bremner is just saying, Pauline, absolutely agree. And Breach Doherty saying, really interesting and totally agree that the online learning with no or little prior preparation deepen the inequality. Yeah, we're broadband, some students with no devices, etc. So thanks for your comments. I'm going to hand you over to my colleague Helen Ryan now. Helen's going to give a short presentation, and if you have any further comments for Pauline or for Catherine or for Helen, or any questions, feel free to type into the question/chat box. Okay, thank you. Where you go, Helen? Hi, Helen. Hello, Helen. You are still muted. We can't hear you.
I must have looked great there, thanking everyone, and you couldn't hear great. So sorry. Thank you to Catherine and to Pauline. I was saying really interesting and powerful comments from both of you around where we're at now, and the topic today, obviously looking at literacy, numeracy, and digital skills in COVID-19 and beyond. And I'm going to just have a few slides to go through around looking at this from a sort of a policy perspective and back to the practice piece as well, which has been brought up in what we've heard so far. So literacy, part of NALA's work and International Literacy Day, here we are, we're again, always, I suppose it doesn't go away, trying to promote what is adult literacy, because many people find it quite shocking still that we have statistics, as I will look at in a minute. But what are we talking about when we say literacy, numeracy, and digital skills? And really, it's everywhere in life there. You see the individual there in the middle. We're trying to visualize this a lot of the time when we're working with the government and public services and employers, that literacy is about listening and speaking. It's about reading, writing, numbers, technology, and it's a person's skills to participate fully in society around 4 themes we've been working on, particularly, which would be work, family, social and community, and health and well-being. And that broadens out there, as you can see in the diagram, to all of the areas of life. And it includes more than these technical skills, because it also has personal, social, emotional, and economic dimensions. So it's not as linear as just a set of functional skills. It comes with a lot of context around that as well. And as I mentioned, some of the statistics there, what do they mean? Well, again, just for did you know, we have a new infographic out for International Literacy Day, and trying to share it with people. Some of the statistics, if you heard the Minister this morning, again, he was quoting them. You know, 1 in 6 Irish adults struggle with reading and understanding everyday text. And it was good to hear the examples there that Catherine gave around some of the COVID material, and Pauline said that as well, that when messaging is clear and concise, you know, we are able to understand it, but it can actually become challenging when you have, first of all, mixed messages, and if it's not written in plain English, for example. But 1 in 6 adults do struggle with the reading, and it's the understanding piece linked to that. For the first time ever then, in 2013, we got a numeracy statistic, and we now know that 1 in 4 adults, which is higher than the literacy, struggle with basic addition, working out a bill, calculating averages, etc. And in Ireland, we're a bit more comfortable with saying, oh, I'm not too good at the numbers. It's sort of an easier thing to say, but numbers is everywhere, and numbers are money, help people with their finances, with budgeting, if you need to look at your mortgage, if you're trying to work out your rent, etc. So numeracy really is a huge issue that other countries have really prioritised, and we've done a lot of work in NALA here around looking at a particular numeracy strategy and what would that look like. Moving then on to digital, and this is a huge, there's 2 statistics there, because we have the previous, the CSO one, which was the survey that was done then, but there's a more recent statistic which says that, you know, over half the population has low digital skills. And there are things that Pauline would have mentioned there, even people, perhaps I can even get online, but when I'm online then, am I able to navigate what I need to do? Am I aware of places that I might be putting information in, and so on? So we really need to look at digital skills and a digital strategy that hopefully we'll see in the coming months from the government. And then, you know, it's really important to acknowledge that we do have over 500,000 people who struggle with literacy in particular, and more with numeracy, but that the adult literacy service that's available around the country is fantastic. I mean, it's run by the ETBs. Hopefully people are aware of their local centres if there are people today. I know a lot of practitioners on today who work in the centres, but there may be other people who joined us for today, and that those centres are all over the country. They're free, they're confidential, trained literacy tutors, working with adults from anything from 2 to 6 hours, maybe to an intensive program at 15 hours. So they're really important services there for people to use. And I suppose, conscious of what's been mentioned by Catherine and Pauline, the services are closed, were closed, and now are beginning to reopen, that was a big loss for people over that time, and lots of online learning and other ways were happening to help keep learners on a sort of a learning journey until we can hopefully get people back into some of the services. But with all that, it is to say that is only 12.5% of those with literacy needs, and it is a very small cost of around 540 per person. So that's, I suppose, part of NALA's role has been raising awareness of the statistics, of the current situation, and looking to try and do something a little bit different now to really get a handle on the issue and address it in a meaningful way. So our topic, and looking at it from the COVID experience, and it was really useful hearing the examples there from Catherine and Pauline, but certainly what we found over the last couple of months, that COVID, and really UNESCO also looked at this recently as well, it shed a light on 2 areas. One was inequality, and that was inequality of access we spoke about there on digital, or inequality to not having the resources to being able to look up things online quickly or apply for payments if we needed to do that. And then there was the second piece, which again has been raised, the unpreparedness, a big long word, maybe not so plain English, of infrastructure, education systems, programs and people. And we've all had to, I think everyone responded quite quickly. I know we had to. I know that certainly when you look at all the coronavirus information that the HSE put out, they adapted very quickly. There were videos in different languages. So a lot of sort of emergency actions were thrown in, and I think we did pretty well as a country around that in helping people. But we now have a chance. In every crisis, they say there is an opportunity. We have a chance now, as we rebuild and relook at Ireland, to place adult literacy, numeracy and digital skills at the centre of a plan to go forward. And Pauline came across this document there. It's a UNESCO document, and when we send the slides, you can have a read of this if you want to have a look there. But she came across the quote, which I thought was really nice, and we put it in today, to say, in education, as in health, we're safe when everyone is safe, and we flourish when everyone flourishes. And that's where we mean about we want everybody to have access. We want everyone to get these skills, first of all, and if they didn't for whatever reason, then let's look at how we can address that and do that now. Because literacy really is a barometer of equality. That's the key thing. I mean, some people didn't got these skills through the schooling formal system. Some people didn't. Some people got them a little bit rusty perhaps, and then went into work and didn't practice the skills. So you have the de-skilling element into that. So we now need to look at trying to raise the literacy levels for adults to go back and learn in different ways that suits them. And equal societies, we know, again, there's a lot of evidence out here. I could do a whole day work of sharing evidence with you. But we know that equal societies are happier and healthier and wealthier. And that if you improve literacy, it has huge knock-on effects to the individual. They're going to be healthier. They're going to be helping their family if they have children with their homework. They will be able to access services. Maybe if they're in work, they'll go for promotion. So there's a ton of really strong benefits that have been economically looked at as to why it's important and why we should be investing in adult literacy. And what are we doing then? So NALA, as part of our work over the last year, well, over the last 3 years of our plan, but certainly in this last year, we've been certainly with the election back in February, and we've been meeting a lot of TDs and a lot of our government officials and our funders in SOLAS, and we've been trying to, again, push for maybe looking at this a little bit differently and addressing it in a way that would really give a meaningful push in the next 10 years. So we were succeeded, and we were delighted to get in 2 commitments into the programme for government. So one commitment looking for a 10-year strategy, and then the second commitment is around plain language, which I think everyone agreed that the COVID material, when it's written clearly and plainly, is a great example of how plain language really does work. And part of us then we've got the thing into the programme of government, and we've been working then on a number of documents that I won't speak about. We've another webinar in July where we launched the documents, but I just thought it was interesting to share with you. Here's the 3 here and the links to them when we send on the slides. So we have one report is called Literacy Now, and that just has all the evidence in there, where we're at now and why we need to do this. And again, that's all the money and the benefits within that document. The second document was a framework that was actually proposing this whole of government approach, which is where we'd like to see things go. And I'll have a slide on that now in one tick. And then the third document is for the people who like evaluation and systems. They were like, it's an outcomes framework. So again, we have 3 really key papers and documents that we presented to the minister quite recently, and we presented to and gave them into SOLAS, and we say, look, these are documents which we hope will help you as you move forward now with planning a plan in adult literacy. So the literacy for life, and I suppose rounding us back around again to where we began about literacy being everywhere, and all of these skills are in all parts of our life. We want to sort of look at it from a cross-departmental approach. So when we do a lot of work, for example, with health literacy, and we're working with the Department of Health, and we talk about empowering people and how we need to work with them. But when they hear the word education, in previous, they would have said, oh, that's an education issue. And we would have been tottled off back down the other side of the city to talk to the Department of Education about health. And they said, oh, health, but that's a health issue. Actually back, so sort of health literacy was falling between sort of 2 departments, when really the 2 departments now coming together and looking at that would make a real difference to people. Other areas that we would have worked on over the years, for example, Department of Social Protection, so helping unemployed people who need literacy supports. Again, that straddles over to the Department of the new Department of Further Education, Further and Higher Education, Research, Innovation and Skills. It's a big mouthful. So you can see that a lot of the work, because life intersects. No one department is responsible for all of it, and we're into lifelong learning, which spans many different parts of our life. So we're looking for this whole of government approach and basing it on a sort of a capabilities approach, looking at giving us and building our capacity to do the things we need to do in society, like access information, process it, make good decisions, advocate and self-advocate, and just feel greater satisfaction and a healthier life, as we mentioned earlier. So that's sort of our work now, moving it forward then really is trying to promote this and linking in with sort of the government and where we're at now, because today, International Literacy Day, people probably heard Minister Harris this morning, you know, they're certainly looking at this area, and we really hope and can't wait really to work with the department and SOLAS to get a good plan in action to try and address this over the coming 10-year strategy that will be developed. Is that okay, Fergus?
Perfect. Helen, thanks very much. That was great. Really thought-provoking. Yeah, just spot on. I'm just going to end the recording now, but we can still take questions.